Um, Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dre Davis, and I am an English education major. And today, my book talk is going to be on Beverly Tatum's "Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria?" And so, this book has forever changed my life. Opened my eyes in so many ways to the ongoing race issues that exist in the United States. I was very excited to pick up this book. I have questions of my own going into this book about these kind of ideas and racial identity in America. And so, without further ado, we get on with the presentation. Okay, so my author is Beverly Tatum. And Beverly Tatum, to me, is just as equipped and I guess you could say she has credentials. She's served as a scholar, teacher, and author, administrator, race relations expert. She was ninth president of Spelman College. She has a bachelor's degree in clinical psychology at Wesleyan University. Her master's and PhD were from the University of Michigan. And so she has several honorary degrees. And it shows that Beverly Tatum has dedicated herself to studying and bettering herself on the topic of racial issues. And so all these degrees are definitely not just to entertain, her name or something. She's serious about figuring out why students, how their identity development occurs and different ways of approaching it. And so for me, just seeing her dedication and understanding her background really motivated me to continue reading the book. Her literary contributions are numerous. Of course, her book, the book I'm talking about today, Can We Talk About Race and Other Conversations in an Era of School Resegregation, Assimilation Blues, Black Families, a White Community. So, we see titles, diversity, learning about racism, all these books, degrees dedicated to really exposing the myth of the social norm and how it affects our students today. So can we talk about this? Tatum's main focus is racial identity development. She makes a comment that, students, really don't think that racism, a lot of kids don't think, especially white American students, don't really think that racism exists. And Tatum mentions this, one student that she had in her class that kind of, didn't believe racism exists, and so she used activities in the class to show, to point towards the different issues of racism in the United States. So she makes a definite line between prejudice and racism. And prejudice she defines as the views that can be held by either majority or minority towards other individuals. But racism itself is a system of advantage that the dominant group in a culture has over the subordinate group. So this is where you get the ideas of, well, he's pretty for a black guy, or her hair's beautiful for a black girl. These ideas of what is accepted, interracial marriage, different, prejudice is different views, but racism is the system at work, the system of people, of political ideologies, of educational ideologies, the ways we handle the context of race in every facet of life in culture. So why is this important? Racial identity development is the most important thing for our students in the classroom, because when a student decides who I am, they have to first confront, what does the culture think about who I am? And if Tatum mentions the looking glass theory in her book, and how that the world is a multi-dimensional looking glass, and if a student's if a student's race is continuing to be brought to their attention, then they're going to have to face it one day or another. They're going to have to come to ask the big question: what does it mean to be fill in the blank? So who am I? So dominant group sets the norm. They're the culture. In America, it's the white culture. And the subordinate group is the group that struggles with self-identity. So I provided a chart here. It's from the Huffington Post. From 1984 to 2009, you can see an increase or change in income for white families in the white line and African American families in the red. And so this graph is just to reinforce the idea that there is a dominant subordinate culture, and it is can be recognized by statistics. And so Tatum kind of provides different models of identity development throughout the book, but one that's really important is well, the factors that keep reoccurring are family dynamics. So what does your family think about your color? You know, what does it mean to be black? What does it mean to the family to be black? How does the family reinforce that? Do they allow the kids to go and play with other children? Do they, you know what I'm saying? Do they allow? Do they keep them secluded and kind of try to be the hero, so to speak, and prove the point that, you know, I'm different from the minority? Or, you know, what are the ideals that are being shot towards young children, young individuals throughout life? Individual characteristics, you know, the idea, you know, that just because I'm 6'5" and I'm African American doesn't mean that I love to play basketball, you know. And so these different ideas that play into who I am, what am I supposed to be? These are it's just a wheel, you know, of things, historical factors, you know, that shape identity. So in our culture and history, in the history classroom, definitely, and of course in the English classroom as well, we have to face what's going on here with, you know, racism or segregation, slavery in the 19th century. You know, how do we reinforce the good, the positives? How do we speak of the minorities in affliction to help our students stay engaged to where they don't feel ashamed to be colored? I mean, you know, African American. They don't feel shame to be a person of color. They don't feel, you know, obligated to try to fit into the dominant culture. They're excited to be just exactly who they're supposed to be. And so Tatum, when she addresses after Who Am I, she starts us out with really diving into the early years of identity development, early childhood. And so the early years, children are making sense of concrete objects, you know. Of course, Piaget's stages of development, you know, the different motor skills that are taking place there. And so she gives an example of her child coming home and having to tell her about a kid at school that said he was, you know, dark or black because he drank too much chocolate milk. Okay, so clearly the child's trying to make a connection and maybe hasn't been around a lot of African American students. But Tatum takes this point and educates our son about race and educates our son about the reason why his skin's dark. And she teaches him about what melanin is and how he has more melanin, a greater amount of melanin than his friend did. And so reinforcing the better, you know, whatever you can do to show that child, to make sure that they're excited and proud of who they're becoming. And so she gives identity development for kids. It's the diffused, foreclosed, a moratorium, and achievement. And this is Marcia's development stage. And so diffuse is the child's pretty much really not exploring identity. They are who their parents kind of tell them to be. You know, they're just kind of going through the motions. Foreclose, they're willing to learn, but they really haven't had an experience yet. Moratorium is where they're currently. They're right there experiencing racism for what it is, and achievement where they have finally said, I am, and this is where, this is who I am, this is who I'm going to be. Okay. So if you look at the picture here I got, there's a experiment that's done. Several different people have tried it, but this is important to understand. This picture right here shows an African American child and a white child on the ground. And so experts, when I was doing research on this, experts would ask children, "What do you think happened here?" Or "Who do you think's the nice